to Who Made You the Boss? I'm your host, Lindsey, and today we are talking about something every ambitious leader faces: how to stay grounded while chasing big dreams. My guest and my friend, Pauleanna Reid, knows this challenge all too well. She's a communications executive, a celebrity ghostwriter, and the entrepreneur behind Writer's Block. And most recently, she's a new mom. Her journey is proof that success isn't just about reaching goals. It's about aligning them with purpose, resilience, and mental well-being. Pauleanna shares how she's turned personal struggles into stepping stones. Guys, you will not believe the ability this woman has to look at every opportunity as a second chance. She'll share more about why mentorship is the secret weapon for growth and what it really takes to thrive in high-pressure industries. And listen, the conversation doesn't just stop here. Join me over on the Who Made You the Boss Substack for behind-the-scenes insights, deeper reflections, and a space to continue the dialogue. You can find that at lindseyepperly.substack.com, and I've got it linked in the show notes for you too. Now, let's get started. All right, Pauleanna, I am so excited to have you on today. First of all, because we just got to have a mini catch up, which is the first one that you and I have had since you welcomed your new baby into the world.
I know. I'm very, very excited to be a mom. It's all I've ever wanted. You know, in my 20s, I was a hustler. I know that's such a bad word now, but I hustled my face off, and I knew that I had to do that so I could be comfortable and financially stable and fulfill my real dream of becoming a mom in my 30s. So I'm very, very happy. And a lot can change for you in a year. I will say that.
I bet. Yeah, a lot has changed for you. I know this is amazing. It was like not too long ago that you and I were talking about how you had found this incredible love story. And now here you are, married with baby.
Honestly, shout out to Tinder.
Shout out to Tinder. This episode brought to you by. Well, I actually want to really talk to you about that intentionality. Like even just hearing you give that answer of like, I hustled in my 20s so that I could have this in my 30s. Like everything you do, including like curating your bookshelf, I've read, is done with intentionality, right?
Yeah, everything. Absolutely. So, I mean, I was a serial dater. And I like this topic because a lot of my friends forget to date. Like everyone's building the company, everyone is making the money, and no one is feeling sexy and feminine and being wined and dined and learning to flirt. So like I'm raising my hand to open up this topic. But yeah, like I dated all types of men. Honestly, in my 20s, I lived, honey. Like I did all the things. And so in my 30s, I was like, okay, I definitely want to settle down. So I was just really intentional. I definitely believe in the apps. I was on 6 apps at once, and I stumbled across my future husband, my now husband. And yeah, within a year, I had everything that I ever wanted. I'm really proud of myself for, choosing well.
Yes. Choosing well, choosing yourself, well, it's funny. Yeah. I told you before this call that the topic today would be passion, and I meant passion in entrepreneurship, but it sounds like we might take it toward passion in dating as well.
I mean, passion in all things, passion in all the things.
But that's what's so cool about you. I feel like you have passion in spades. And when you and I first connected, it was after I listened to a presentation that you did about like writing and pitching to media. And I was like, this girl has it going on. Like it was so cool. Yeah, you were like in your element. So it was like, one, really empowering to listen to a female who like has clearly found her space, has found like the industry that she thrives in. And so I was like, she has got passion. And then you managed to like turn this into a businesses, mentorship programs, all this amazing stuff. So I just want to talk to you about that because, you've had some really pivotal moments, it sounds like, throughout your 20s and 30s in which I know you mentioned even on your website, like when you were younger, you felt like you didn't have a voice. And so it's incredible that you've managed to turn that struggle into now your own voice, but also being a voice for others as a celebrity ghostwriter. I mean, it's just the coolest thing. So like, tell us a little bit more about how you pulled that thread of passion out of the challenge and turned it into what you've turned it into.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm a communications executive. I own a celebrity ghostwriting agency. But what I think your audience would be surprised to know is that in high school, I failed many of my classes, including English, grade 11 and 12. Every year I was in night school and summer school. I have a learning difference. I'm neurodivergent. And so I think what people would be surprised to know is how I arrived here. But it's because I wanted it badly enough. So when I was in school, I was bullied and tortured. And in the pockets of silence, I would doodle and I would write in my notebook and I would dream of what life was like outside of the hellhole I was in. And just because I wasn't good at something doesn't mean I still didn't want to try, because in those quiet moments, life was peaceful and perfect. I was
Mm.
like, I like this feeling. I want to chase this feeling for the rest of my life. So then I started a blog, and then I entered the world of journalism, and then I wrote a book, and things evolved naturally. Um, and I just think with anything, so I'm also a college professor part-time. I don't have time to teach college, but I'm really passionate about literacy because we do have a literacy issue in our country. And I tell my students all the time that, writing is not an innate talent. You have to practice it. And I literally taught myself to read and to write, through my school years. And so I'm here because I earned it. I'm here because I
Mm.
deserve it. I'm here because I wanted it that badly. I've
Yeah.
talked to people in the past who are embarking on passions, and, they give up after 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. Like if I didn't arrive here and it took me the rest of my life, I would have taken the time to do that.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's how much I'm fired up about the work and how much I love it.
Yes. It's interesting to hear you say that you felt that sense of peace when you were doing the work, because I think maybe where we go wrong is we feel a sense of peace when we're exercising our passion, and then we expect for the journey to be peaceful. And you and I both know as entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
that journey is
absolutely.
not
This was
peaceful.
before entrepreneurship. Like this is still when I mean, you're always dreaming, but I was
Yeah.
dreaming of being an entrepreneur. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I like the feeling, like, Danielle Laporte often talks about not chasing a thing or a title. We should be chasing a feeling. And
Mm.
even when the work is hard, I still like when I'm stressed and I'm falling apart and I may have an episode just because I'm stressed or upset or whatever. I still go back to the work. The work,
Mm.
despite the hurdles you have to jump through, it still like makes me feel good. I lock myself in my office. My office is my happy place. And I just chip away. And I just, how would they would say eat the elephant one chunk at a time, like one
Yes.
bite at a time. Like I just chip away and like it makes me feel really good.
Mm. What would you tell someone that's like sitting in that seat right now that is like, okay, I feel this sense of peace when I'm writing, or I know I really need to get my story on pages, right? Like that was how I felt 5 or 6 years ago when I first started writing, was
Yeah.
like, I have this like great big dog caged inside of me. And if I don't let
Yeah.
it out for a walk, it's going to claw its way out. Like that was how intense it was. But like,
Yeah.
what do you tell people who are just sitting down and starting?
I tell people to start small, but think big, right?
Mm.
So a lot of times people go from zero to a book, but you can go from zero to a podcast, zero to an essay on LinkedIn, zero to a blog, right? Like you don't not have to climb Mount Everest right out the gate.
Hmm.
Um, Practice exercising that muscle, that creative muscle. I get a lot of
Yeah.
people that come to me, they're like, how do I be a ghostwriter? I'm like, baby, like this took me a long time to get here. Like you can't just like, even if I told you the formula, there's no way that you could just execute it like that. I tell people that you have to find joy in the mundane, in the simple things.
Mm.
The first thing I say is start a blog. And they look at me like, what? Like they want to do all the things. I said, start a blog and hit me back up in a year. That's your
Yeah.
instruction. And if they
Yeah.
don't come back, then I just know they're not willing to just like follow. You have to have blind faith. And so the reason why I say start a blog is because I tell them you need to show people that you are capable of telling compelling stories,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
do that on your own free will, do it for free, do it, in your free time. And then eventually you get to the point where you get to work with individuals and make money. But like first, you need to showcase your market value. First, you need to showcase people how ridiculously obsessed you are with the art. First, you need to show
Yeah.
people that you can be consistent. It's like the habits and the patterns come first.
Yes. Well, and that's your story as well, right? You wrote
Yes.
first and then you launched the business. Like, can
Oh,
you take me through
100%.
the like what, how A led to B led to C?
Yeah. So I was an executive assistant for 10 years in corporate. I dropped out of college. I decided to turn the world into my classroom. Traditional education just did not work for me.
Yeah.
And I was an executive assistant. I was already ghostwriting without knowing it because I was assisting presidents and CEOs and writing their
Mhm.
bios and their speeches. And I didn't even know it was a thing until I stumbled across an article in 2014 of a female ghostwriter who shared her story. And this is one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about sharing stories, is because when you don't, it's a disservice to the generations coming up behind you. Because if
Mm,
she did not have the courage to do so, I would not be here today. Now, she wasn't
yeah.
the only one who opened the door, but she definitely, I was like, what's a ghostwriter? Like, it just piqued my curiosity. And so at the time I was knee deep in journalism. And so I kind of, I pinned the idea, and
Mhm.
I circled back to it after some time. And the first thing I did was I wrote for an agency, right? So under the tutelage of Rakia Reynolds, who's a amazing executive in communications. I worked for her for 3 years remotely. And my first assignment was to write a keynote speech for a world-class supermodel. And when I submitted the speech, the team had no notes. And I was like, okay, this is a sign. This
Okay.
is a clue. This is something that I could follow. And like, there's a saying that success leaves clues.
Hmm.
And, you just have to have your eyes and ears open. And so that happened. And Rakia taught me, one of the questions I'd asked her years ago, I was like, how did you make your first million? And she said, relationship capital. And that really stayed with me. And you and I talked about how I spend a lot of time in New York. New York was my first city of choice. And I have a son, and if I have a baby girl in the future, her name is going to be Brooklyn, because Brooklyn changed my life, my financial stability, like how I see the world and people, culture. It just blew my mind. I used to sleep on the floor at LaGuardia Airport because I couldn't afford a hotel. I didn't have a network to sleep on anyone's couch. I would schedule meetings from sunrise to sunset, go to the airport, sleep on the floor, sponge bath, and then go back out. Right. So for me,
Wow.
it's about proximity to opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things. I went in so many different directions, but the point is, New York was that fire under my butt, because when I was
Mhm.
there, I mean, people would take meetings at 6 a.m. Right. When I was there,
Yeah.
people would drop $50,000 on a project and take a risk. If that, like, people were just really inspired and motivated and decisive. And it really
Yeah.
just changed the way I looked at business. It changed the way I operated as a businesswoman. And in 2017, I launched my own ghostwriting agency led by all women of color. We are literally content ninjas, and we assist the world's greatest leaders and doers who are shaping the future. And we help them turn their personal stories into brand assets.
Mm, beautiful. Okay, so you did go in a lot of different directions in which I was taking mental notes in my mind of like all the places I want to take this conversation.
Yeah.
One of which being, I just have to point this out to listeners because it reminded me of something that you said when I first met you. So you go, all right, I wrote that and there were no notes. And that showed me, okay, I'm good at this. There were no notes. And I remember in that webinar that you gave, at the very end, you go, are there any questions? And there were no questions. And I think the like average human sits in that moment, feels super awkward, and is like, no one's got questions and I have to fill the space. And instead, you go, then I did my job right. And it was like, mic drop. First of all, just listeners, take that away the next time you're in a situation like that. Like, you used that as a source of like, cool, then everyone got it. Cool, then this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was just like such a place of inspiration because I think you were able to look at like a very common situation that might make someone feel uncomfortable and actually
Yeah.
take it as like, no, that's credit. Like, I did that.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to look at the positive side of things always. And I
Yeah.
love presenting. I think it's important for business owners to teach, because when you're able to teach something at a subject at a finer technical level, that's when you unlock a different part of your brain. And so I really
Mm.
enjoyed that webinar. So one of my most requested talks is how to pitch to the media, because I am still a journalist, a freelance journalist. I run a company full time. And I think that, when I teach in the classroom, when I talk on stage, when I do workshops, I enjoy it because it challenges me. Every
Mm.
Monday for many, many years, I do this thing called Mentor Monday on social media. And one of the reasons, actually, I'll back up. A lot of my colleagues are like, why do you donate your time? Why do you allow people to pick your brain? Why? And I say, why not? First of all, like, you look weird for even asking me that. Second of all, I do it because I want to learn what the next gen is up to. I want to be challenged. Like, I like when people ask me
Mm.
questions, because yes, ask me the hardest question you have, because I want to challenge myself, because it's transferable skills that I can apply to my business. I love mentorship. I love pouring into people, and I love planting seeds, right? I don't expect anything in return. I run a mentorship program. I've ran it since 2015. And partially because mentors shifted my life. Like
Yeah.
mentors were my world curriculum. And, I don't go to every conference and every workshop and tap into every guru because I sit at the feet of my elders. I sit at the feet of my own mentors
Mm.
because they're the ones who they blow my mind every single day.
I love that you brought this up because I had it in my notes to bring it up to you. And also just listening to all of your answers. And every single answer, there's a moment where you are mentioning, I teach this, or I built this because of it. Like, right, building your entire company as all people of color so that you could turn around and teach them what you have learned. And then you also launched New Girl on the Block, which is your mentorship program. And I think I read the statistic that you've actually mentored over 2,000 individuals through this program. Is that correct?
Over 200.
Oh
That was
my God,
extra
I
zero.
read it wrong. I'm sorry. I was like,
No, you're
girl,
totally
where do you
fine.
find that time? Extra
Over
zero.
200 women in 11 countries.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, that's incredible.
It could have easily been 2000. I want to make it very clear. It could
Yeah.
have been thousands. And I think when we think of community, we think of numbers and we want to build the biggest community ever. I have an application process. And so
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't want to mentor 2000 people per se, maybe like obviously through organic content, but like in
That's,
terms
I
of
didn't
like,
know if you were like counting the mentorship Mondays on social, if that was what
yeah,
you meant, or if this was one-on-one.
in
Okay.
terms of long-term mentorship one-on-one, where I
Yeah.
actually know them on a personal, heart-centered level, just over 200 women.
That's still a lot to know on a heart-centered level. Like that is a big impact.
Yeah,
It
it is.
also shows me that you operate with an abundance mindset in terms of your skills and your time. Because I think a lot of times, and taking this back to the idea of passion, a lot of times we might think like, I have this one passion, I have to be absolutely determined to go after it. Nothing else can get in my way, like blinders on. And you've been able to pull like, I have this one passion, and here are the tendrils in which I can put it into the world. And it's so cool to see that.
Yeah, I think that, when we're chasing this thing, like my identity is not tied to my title, right? Like
Yeah.
I use all of these titles as um, buckets, as pillars, as vessels, right? And so, but I also will say this, I'm very meticulous with my time. Like I'm not just out
Yeah.
here like woo wooing, like I'm very meticulous with my calendar. I color code, I time block, and like I'm okay with being accessible where I know not a
Yeah.
lot of people are. Because I just care. When I was a young girl who just didn't know anything from anything, someone invested in me, someone took a chance. And I just feel like the greatest gift that I can give with my life is mentorship. That's it,
Yeah.
period. And
Yeah.
not everyone feels that way, and that's okay, but I do.
I talk a lot about mentorship on the podcast because a mentor changed my entire life and trajectory. Shannon Miles, I interviewed her for last season. And it's just, you're right. It's a beautiful gift that we can turn around and give to someone else. And I think that a lot of times we think of it as like, oh, I need to be, up in age when I finally turn around and do that. And you're showing like, no, success leaves clues. I'm leaving breadcrumbs along the way. So
Mhm.
anyone who's eager enough will be able to pick this up and engage with me throughout the journey, not just because I've reached quote unquote success and retirement or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and there's a spectrum, right? So like I
Mhm.
have very intentional mentorship pathways, but you can also be a mentor when you are engaging with peers one-on-one, right? You can also be a mentor through your content, right? You can also be a mentor and angel if you meet someone at the grocery store and you extend a helping hand. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be so intense, right? Like it's in those pockets of time where you're just being compassionate and
Yeah.
empathetic and kind and gentle with people.
Yes. I love that. I think something too that resonates with me when I like study up on your writing and your work and your website and things that are on it, you are very much a believer relentlessly in second chances. And so that shows me the attitude of I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. Like we can always come back to it and do it again over. And I just want to talk a little bit about that because I think that should be encouraging to listeners.
Yeah, you can hit the reset button anytime you want to, as many times as you need to.
Mm.
I'm someone who, on paper, my path does not make sense. The math does not math. It's very zigzaggy,
Yeah.
and I still made it to where I wanted to be. You just have to be open to the possibilities, right? And so I always say that the bad times are a down payment for the good times. You
Mm.
have to experience both. You just have
Yeah.
to, right? I also have a history of mental illness,
Mm.
which, if anyone who looks at me, I have a long history of volunteering for mental health initiatives, speaking on stages around mental health. I've lived with depression and anxiety my entire life. I'm a high functioning individual with crippling um, uh, mental health,
Yeah.
with a crippling mental health journey.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I could just opt to be a statistic. I could just opt to just be in my bed for days. Like it takes me a lot to show up. It takes me a lot
Yeah.
to like I look like I naturally do all these things, but it requires a lot of effort and energy. And it just takes time. Just like when I talk to other people who experience these symptoms, I always tell them like everyone's recovery looks different. Everyone's
Yeah.
path looks different. And you
Yeah.
have to experiment enough to know like what puzzle pieces fit together for you.
Um, Thank you so much for opening up about that because it's something that resonates with me as someone who has also struggled with depression and anxiety and also is very high functioning. And so I think to the outside looking in, you just nailed it. People think it looks so easy. She's got it so easy. But behind the scenes, gosh, well, I'll give you an example. This is like such a low stakes, funny little thing that happened a couple weeks ago. I was going to a play with some friends and we were running a few minutes late and we're in the car. And I feel like I know I'm like bringing my anxiety into this scenario. And I was like, just like quick pulse check here. Scale of 1 to 10. How anxious are you guys that we're going to be late? And they're like 0, 0. And I'm like, I'm hovering at a solid 7.5. And that's like a good thing for me. Usually like I would be at a 12. And so I'm like, oh, this is really abnormal. Like you know, there are those times where you take inventory and you're like,
Yeah.
the way my body is responding right now to this like very low stakes endeavor reminds me
Mhm.
that I have a long way to go, even though I've worked on it a long way already. So
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about like, what do you do to manage that? And like any kind of like, to your point, everyone has it differently and has different tips and tricks, but I just would love to hear what you do.
For sure. I will say that my medical team over the years, since I was a child, has been very accessible to me. Um, and that's a privilege. So I will
Yeah.
say that because there are a lot of people who are on waiting lists for years. And so I
Yeah.
want to preface with that. Even when I was in school, my doctor, my family doctor would say, hey, whenever you feel anxious, if you need to talk, just pop by the office, and
Wow.
he would honestly make time to schedule. And I would just sit in the chair, swinging my feet. My mom would bring me by and he would just be like, okay, let's talk about it. Like he was very
Wow.
hands-on. I mean, he was actually there when my mom gave birth to me. So like I have a very special relationship with my doctor. However, realistically, the things that I do, lifestyle changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I take inventory of what I listen to, who I speak to, the energy I'm around, music therapy, creative therapy, arts and crafts, group therapy, individual therapy. I have boundaries. My therapist always says when your values are clear, decisions are easy, right? So taking the
Mm.
time to figure out what's important to you. Um, and then staying active, right? There is
Mm-hmm.
research that states that when you are physically active, it helps your brain function, it helps your endorphins, it helps the way you feel.
Yeah.
Getting adequate sleep, investing in sleep, investing in your pillows and your lighting and the air quality, like
Yeah.
simple things like that people don't think about are very, very helpful. And then I hang out with the elders in my family, some of the oldest aunts and uncles that I have, and the youngest babies in my family, the toddlers. And so I love that for me because there's so much joy in those conversations. So it's
Yeah.
just like the little things. And then obviously prioritizing myself, finding love. I have to say, I have 30 plus years of having anxiety attacks. Since I
Mhm.
met my partner, I have not had one. My
Wow.
my partner, we've been together for a year, and my partner is such a he was open to learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had not dated anyone with mental health
Hmm.
trouble, and he was open to learning, and he's so gentle with me. I
Yeah.
like and these are preventative measures, by the way. Like you shouldn't wait until you have an episode to then
Yeah.
scramble.
Yeah.
You should be doing things every single day. Like he will encourage me, hey, let's go for a walk. Maybe I
Yeah.
don't want to go for a walk. I don't think I need a walk, but he knows going for a walk and having conversation and just hanging out, he knows it's going to relax me, because he
Wow.
knows I have intense meetings the next day or something like that. Like he's very proactive and that helps too.
Ah, I love that. I mean, really, first of all, I wish we had like another 2 hours because I want to take this conversation in so many ways. But I do have to just quickly touch on this to take this to this place. Hearing you talk about your partner, and I feel that same way with my husband. Of the first man that I feel like who has really been there for me and been a solid rock. And knowing some of your backstory, like you have been in a toxic relationship, in an abusive relationship, and
Yeah.
you wrote so beautifully on it that before you experienced love, you equated it with war.
Yeah.
And I've been there and I felt
Wow.
that.
Hmm.
And so all it takes is that one person, right, that is able to be there with you, that changes the dynamic of your life and shows you what love really is. But after you go through that emotionally abusive scenario, like
Hmm.
it is so hard to trust that next person. I mean, it's so hard to find
Yeah.
it. So I would just want to say, I feel you and I see you because you are so happy. You have found the person who's not the cause of the anxiety attacks, right? Like that's,
Yeah.
it,
He's so
it's
wonderful.
just
My
so
husband
much.
is wonderful. And
Yeah.
I want business leaders and women who are listening to know that love exists, second chances
Yeah.
exist. And, God has greater plans for our lives that don't include crying at night or believing that we're broken. Like
Mm.
I I envisioned it, I saw it in my mind first, and then it came to fruition. I was very intentional with my approach. So I'm very happy. I love him so much.
I just got chills. And also to think about too, the way that you turn around, the way that you mentor, the way that you teach, that now you have a baby and the world is a better place because you are a mother pouring those things into your son. And that gives me all the feels. I have chills.
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, it's hard. I think
Yeah.
pre-baby annual like pre-baby girlies, we're sorry. We didn't know. We didn't know it was
We
this
did not.
hard because I was once that girl that was like I could have been more open and empathetic to my friends who had children who couldn't find childcare, their baby was sick. Like I was like, okay, just, we'll figure it out. We're still gonna go out, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then I had a baby and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a lot, but I
That's your
I
world.
adore him.
But I just
I
know
adore
like
him so much.
I just know you are a fantastic mom. Like everything you've shared with us today, all of these
I'm
values,
trying.
your intentional way of living. I know. And I know those days where it's like, I mean, I get it. Like there's so many days where I'm like, I don't even know that I received a pass fail on that one. Like that was tough, but overall, you're going to crush it. I'm really, really happy for you. I'm really, really proud of you.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Every day I have this notebook that I bought when I was pregnant and I write Vincent love letters.
mm,
And I look forward to giving it to him. 'Cause I write to him like he's an adult, right? And I tell him
yeah.
what's going on today. How does mom feel? What are we going through? I want him to know that I paid attention, that he was
Mm-hmm,
loved. And
mm-hmm.
I also talked to him about my life story. I just have this. I watch too much CSI and I watch too much Law and Order, and I'm like, if something happens to me, he has this notebook. You know where I got
Yes.
that from too? I got that from Grey's Anatomy because Meredith she
Was
reads it
there?
in the first few
Yeah.
seasons. She has her mother's her mother has Alzheimer's and she reads from her mother's journals. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's such a great idea.
Yes. Yes. Well, and writing is your gift. Like that's such a
Yeah,
way to pass
it's
it
my
on.
best. It's my best way to
Mm,
communicate. So I hope it's a keepsake that he will have with him forever.
I know he will. I know that's so special. Okay. I always like to end our interviews by asking the question that my own family asks around the dinner table every night, which is what made you smile today?
That's a great question. What made me smile today? I took a drive this morning and that made me smile. I
Nice.
love taking a drive. I love having the music on blast and
Yes.
just free thinking. Like just, I do a lot of screen time. So anytime that I can step away from the screen is wonderful.
Beautiful. Um, I am so just like blessed by this conversation. And I know our listeners will be as well. I'm really, really glad we got to catch up. And thank you for being so open and honest and vulnerable and for doing that for your whole life. It's really made such a cool impact.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Who Made You the Boss? If you've gained something meaningful from today, my one request is that you share it with a friend. And after you do that, I'm going to invite you to check out a resource that I am passionate about. This is not an ad. It is something I wish I would have had when I was building my own business. As you may already know, most businesses stall when the business owners fail to work on themselves. That's why we're here, right? We all want to grow and be better. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Owner, which is a first of its kind nonprofit for business owners. By focusing on the intersection of personal growth and business progression, owner educates business owners to thrive both financially and personally. For more information, please visit www.o-nr.org. I really think you're going to benefit from it. See you next time.